As my grandmother said when she was crowned, coronations are a declaration of our hopes for the future. And I know she's up there, fondly keeping an eye on us, and she'll be a very proud mother.
Buckingham Palace has just released a heartbreaking statement about Prince William, and it's leaving the entire world in shock. The future king, known for his strength and composure, now faces a moment that no royal training could ever prepare him for. Insiders reveal that the palace's announcement carries a deeply emotional truth, one that will change how the public sees William forever. What tragedy lies behind this sudden revelation? Today, we uncover the full story behind the palace's emotional and devastating message. The palace's midnight bombshell. As reporters huddled together in the freezing London night, their breaths floated in the air like pale ghosts, forming mist that drifted and disappeared into the darkness. Cameras blinked red, microphones trembled in gloved hands, and every face was turned toward the towering gates of Kensington Palace. The royal crest had just flashed across global screens, cutting through regular programming and silencing conversations in pubs, cafes, and living rooms around the world. For a family long known for their polished calm and unshakable composure, this sudden announcement struck like thunder on a clear day. It wasn't just news, it was shock wrapped in royal gold. The statement's arrival ignited a storm of questions no one could yet answer, spreading faster than the cold through the crowd. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was heavy, the grand halls stripped of their usual calm. Prince William's evening schedule had been wiped clean, meetings cancelled, calls postponed. Aides rushed through corridors that smelled faintly of polished wood and anxiety. Behind closed doors, hushed voices overlapped in briefings that lasted too long and revealed too little. Those who had worked closest to him had sensed something coming. They had noticed it in the small details: his faintly forced smiles at public events, the way his laughter never quite reached his eyes, and how his gaze often lingered somewhere distant, as if searching for a horizon only he could see. There had been whispers among the palace staff, gentle, nervous murmurs about strain, fatigue, and private concerns. Whatever had been hidden behind those walls was now exposed for the entire world to question. The official statement, when it arrived, was brief, almost haunting in its restraint. It read, "His Royal Highness is deeply saddened by recent developments and asks for privacy as the family navigates this difficult period." Only one sentence, but heavy enough to stop hearts. It carried no comfort, offered no explanation, just a chilling reminder of how silence can sometimes say more than speech. Within minutes, anchors across continents repeated the line under blinding floodlights, their expressions blending concern and curiosity. Each word hung in the air like a riddle, pulling the public deeper into a fog of speculation. Was it King Charles's health? A hidden crisis within the line of succession? Or something far more personal? An emotional wound too deep to disguise behind royal smiles? Sources close to the family hinted that this storm had been quietly forming for weeks, perhaps months, beneath the glossy veneer of public appearances. Behind the formal handshakes and perfect photographs was a private battle none could yet name. Just days earlier, William had returned from a short, private stay at a secluded Norfolk estate. Locals who caught brief glimpses of him said he looked thinner, quieter, like a man walking through mist. When someone had asked about the king's well-being, his reply, "We take things one day at a time," was calm, but his tone betrayed a quiet exhaustion. That simple phrase now echoed like prophecy. By the time he reappeared in London, the eyes of the world were waiting. Camera flashes painted his face in ghostly light, revealing a mixture of determination and despair. For a fleeting moment, the prince, so often presented as polished, assured, and prepared, looked unmistakably human. The cameras caught something beyond the royal facade: a son, a husband, a man standing at the edge of a storm no title could protect him from. It was an image that stirred collective memory. The boy who once walked behind his mother's coffin, the child who had carried the world's sympathy in silence, was now a man facing the same merciless public gaze. From that solemn march, through grief to his rise as the modern face of the monarchy, William's life had always balanced duty and emotion on a knife's edge. Tonight, that delicate balance seemed ready to break. As the palace gates remained closed and the world held its breath, speculation deepened into something heavier: concern, curiosity, and a strange kind of empathy. The royal mask had slipped, if only slightly, revealing what power and privilege so often hide: the weight of expectation, the loneliness of leadership, and the quiet ache of being human beneath a crown. For all the grandeur, tonight reminded the world of a simple truth: the throne may command nations, but it cannot protect the heart that sits beside it. And in that cold London air, as headlines spread and lights dimmed across the city, one thing became clear: the story unfolding within those palace walls was not just another royal chapter. It was a glimpse into the price of duty, the fragility of legacy, and the silent sorrow of a son bound by both love and destiny. What effect would the released statement have on the monarchy? How did the media report the statement? Let's find out. Whispers turned to roars. At dawn, London awoke to a storm of speculation following a cryptic royal statement. Curiosity spread through commuters, homes, and newsstands as headlines screamed of crisis and heartbreak. The media dissected every angle, some claiming the king's health was failing, others hinting at personal turmoil for Prince William. Television anchors fueled the frenzy, their voices thick with urgency. Yet beneath the noise, the truth remained, sealed within palace walls. Only a few trusted insiders knew what had truly shaken the royal family, and they guarded that secret with the precision and loyalty of soldiers defending the crown. The nation waited, breathless, for clarity amid the fog of rumor and royal mystery. Prince William, long admired as the picture of composure and duty, suddenly appeared different. The man shaped by discipline, loss, and expectation now carried a restlessness that even the sharpest palace staff couldn't disguise. "He's been carrying something deeply personal," an anonymous aide told a reporter, their voice thick with concern. The remark spread like wildfire. It wasn't gossip anymore. It was grief disguised as rumor. In a world where royal privacy was as fragile as glass, William's silence was deafening. It wasn't the silence of pride, but of pain. The next morning, footage of him attending a charity event in central London hit every news channel. His face was pale, his smile forced. Cameras caught the tension in his jaw, the brief flicker of sorrow in his eyes. He waved politely, muttered a few words, and disappeared inside. The clip replayed endlessly, each loop turning him from a confident prince into a man visibly burdened. Psychologists, royal commentators, and even body language experts joined the spectacle. They unearthed old interviews, replaying moments when William had spoken about the fragility of family, the lessons of loss, and the unshakable influence of his late mother, Princess Diana. Each word was now treated as a clue. "He's the ultimate guardian," one pundit observed solemnly during a live broadcast. But even guardians bleed, just not where the world can see. Behind the velvet curtains of royal life, quiet adjustments began. His schedule was trimmed down to the bare essentials. Meetings were postponed, appearances cancelled. Inside Windsor, Catherine, Princess of Wales, always the embodiment of calm and grace, kept the family together with quiet strength. She ferried George, Charlotte, and Louis to and from their lessons, her gentle smile masking whatever tempest brewed within. Observers noted the subtle changes: fewer public outings, tighter security, a lingering sense of something unspoken. Within the palace walls, The once perfectly orchestrated rhythm of royal duty faltered. Assistants spoke in hushed tones, advisors moved cautiously, uncertain of how much to say or do. The royal household, usually a model of efficiency and ceremony, seemed wrapped in an invisible tension, like an orchestra waiting for the conductor who never appeared. By the second day, speculation reached fever pitch. Online forums lit up with theories. Newspapers competed for the boldest headline. Some said a secret letter had surfaced. Others hinted at a private conflict tearing the royal family apart. But amidst all the noise, one thread connected every theory. Something had wounded Prince William deeply, and whatever it was, it had the potential to shake the very foundations of the monarchy. Meanwhile, London carried on. Cars honked, shops opened, and ordinary life hummed beneath the swirl of speculation. But for those who followed the royal family closely, there was a different energy in the air, something heavier, like the calm before a storm, that everyone senses but no one can name. Inside the palace, long hallways seemed quieter. Advisors avoided eye contact. Catherine's steps echoed softly as she passed through marble corridors, carrying both duty and devotion on her shoulders. William, often described as his father's steady hand, now appeared as the son still haunted by ghosts of the past, grappling with a pain too personal for public eyes. As whispers grew into a national roar, Britain held its breath. Everyone, from journalists in bustling newsrooms to pensioners in countryside cottages, waited for what came next. And though no one yet knew the truth, one certainty lingered in every heart. The story unfolding behind those palace gates wasn't just another royal scandal. It was something far more human, a tale of love, loss, and the heavy, invisible price of wearing a crown. Although William is definitely not new to the media stunts, he seemed to be caught in a heartbreaking moment. Let's delve into the details of the turbulence that kept William indoors longer than usual. The cracks in the facade. By the third morning, Britain's calm dissolved into chaos as rumors about the royal family erupted across headlines and screens. Speculations of betrayal, illness, and abdication filled the air, feeding a nation desperate for truth. Yet within Windsor and Buckingham, silence reigned, thick, deliberate, and suffocating. Prince William, unseen since a brief public appearance, became the unseen center of a storm. Cameras and reporters swarmed palace gates, their questions unanswered, their shouts fading against unmoved walls. Outside, frenzy ruled. Inside, secrecy sealed every corridor, leaving a kingdom suspended between fear, fascination, and the weight of the unknown. Behind those gates, William was not in exile, nor on some secret flight to Balmoral, as rumors suggested. He was there, in Windsor, haunted and conflicted. Those close to him described a man torn between duty and grief. His every decision feeling like a betrayal of one truth or another. The nights stretched long. Advisors and senior courtiers held private meetings that went well past midnight, their whispers weaving through corridors like smoke. Every conversation carried the weight of possible disaster. They knew that a single statement, the wrong word in a single sentence, could rattle the monarchy's foundation and perhaps change its future forever. Some insiders whispered that William had been handed a confidential dossier, one so explosive that it left him visibly shaken. Alone in his study, he had reportedly read it over and over, eyes tracing the same sentences, as if searching for a way to make them untrue. Its contents, those who claimed to know hinted, could upend not only public perception, but personal loyalties that had long been unshakable. Meanwhile, the public turned into detectives. News outlets replayed old videos of father and son side by side, cutting ribbons, laughing at jokes, exchanging glances during royal ceremonies. Commentators dissected every gesture, wondering if hidden tension had always been there. One BBC correspondent described it perfectly: A quiet unraveling of trust. That phrase struck home. It captured the growing unease of a nation that adored its royal family, yet now sensed something deeply amiss. Through it all, Catherine remained the face of calm. She appeared at a children's hospital that afternoon, smiling warmly as cameras clicked, holding tiny hands and comforting anxious parents. But even her smile could not fully conceal the shadows in her eyes. Observers praised her composure, calling her the palace's steady anchor amid the storm. For many, she represented the last symbol of assurance in an institution trembling under scrutiny. By evening, as the autumn sun dipped behind the castle's towers, a new statement arrived from the palace press office. It was short, almost clinical. The Prince of Wales continues to prioritize family and official duties. Further updates will follow in due course. It said everything and nothing. The message offered no mention of the king, no reassurance, no detail, not even a hint of his condition. To the public, that omission spoke louder than any confession. It was a royal cipher, an intentional silence that screamed. Across Britain, living rooms fell into uneasy quiet as people stared at their screens. Something monumental was happening, though no one could yet name it. Social media pulsed with speculation. Was the king gravely ill? Had William made a decision that would redefine his role? Every theory seemed too wild, yet not wild enough. In pubs, cafes, and family kitchens, people spoke in hushed tones as if discussing the fate of a family they personally knew. The monarchy, that centuries-old pillar of British life, suddenly felt fragile, human, and uncertain. And at its center stood a son, a man who had lost before, who had endured public grief as a boy, and now faced another trial that could tear at the seams of his private world and his public destiny alike. By the close of that third day, Britain was holding its collective breath. The polished facade of royal perfection had cracked, revealing something raw beneath. The storm had not yet broken, but everyone could feel it coming. Prince William, unseen but unforgotten, was poised at the heart of it all, caught between the love of a son and the burden of a future crown. The stage was set, the silence deafening. The world waited. What hinted to the public of the void within the monarchy? What did the void mean? What did it imply? Let's dive into the details of how the monarchy prepared to change hands. The heavy crown beckons. Day 4 dawned with a tense stillness over Windsor, the air heavy as though the castle itself waited. Outside its gates, reporters swarmed, their cameras poised for any sign of movement. Each silence from the palace deepened public unease. And when the latest statement omitted mention of King Charles, the world took notice. Speculation spread rapidly. Was the king's health failing? And was Prince William being prepared for the crown sooner than anyone expected? Inside the castle, activity slowed to a solemn rhythm. Courtiers moved quietly through shadowed corridors, their faces marked by restrained anxiety. Behind closed doors, weighty discussions unfolded, balancing duty, privacy, and the unspoken reality that history might be shifting again. In a secluded room overlooking the dew-soaked gardens, William sat alone at a grand oak table, surrounded by official papers and the gravity of expectation. Through the window, the misted lawns gleamed like tears, a silent reflection of the burden he bore. The centuries-old institution seemed to press upon him, ancient, relentless, and now heartbreakingly near. Every document before him felt charged with destiny. Every breath marked the turning of an era. He had spent the last 3 nights poring over them, unable to rest. His eyes burned, but his mind refused peace. There was no room for denial. Everything pointed to the same truth, that the moment he had trained for since childhood might arrive through tragedy, not triumph. Late one night, his phone buzzed with a call from Harry. For a few brief minutes, The brothers' strained bond softened. There were no accusations, no politics, just the voices of two sons trying to face the same looming loss. The conversation reopened old wounds, but beneath it pulsed something rare. Shared fear, shared love, shared duty. Meanwhile, Catherine worked tirelessly to protect their children from the storm. She kept their routines steady. School runs, bedtime stories, laughter at breakfast. Her calm presence filled the gaps that William's distraction left behind. To the outside world, she remained the serene Duchess, yet within, she carried her own quiet ache, watching the man she loved wrestle with destiny and grief. Elsewhere, at Clarence House, Camilla stood her vigil. She moved gently through the king's rooms, speaking to him in whispers, even when he slept, her loyalty now the backbone of the fragile household. Convoys arrived under cover of night, unmarked cars, shadowed figures slipping through side entrances. Every flash of light on the road outside fed the media's obsession. Was it a doctor, a priest, a messenger? No one knew, and the palace revealed nothing. The silence was deliberate, but it only deepened the mystery. Those close to William described him as both resolute and broken, trained all his life to lead, yet unready for the pain that leadership demanded. The crown had always seemed an eventual certainty, but now it felt like an unbearable inheritance. At dusk, he would wander the quiet galleries, the echo of his footsteps mingling with ghosts of history. He often paused before two portraits, the radiant smile of his mother, Diana, and the calm authority of his grandmother, Elizabeth. Between them hung an unspoken lineage of sacrifice. He would stare at them for long minutes, as though drawing strength from their painted eyes, and sometimes, just for a heartbeat, he thought he could hear their voices telling him to stand tall. Outside, the press refused to relent. Cameras stayed trained on the gates through the cold nights, their operators whispering rumors into microphones. Yet, as hours turned into days, something changed in the nation's mood. The frenzy began to soften. The people saw beyond the palace walls, a son keeping vigil beside a fading father. By the fourth night, Windsor was bathed in an almost sacred stillness. Lanterns flickered along the stone paths, their light shimmering in the mist like candles at a wake. The air carried a chill that reached into the bones, yet it also held something tender, an unspoken prayer shared by millions. Above, the stars glowed faintly, as if the heavens themselves paused to watch. Inside, behind guarded windows and drawn curtains, hearts waited for what the next dawn would bring. No trumpets, no proclamations, no noise, just the trembling quiet before history turns a page. How did the crown shift to William? Was it a voluntary abdication, or something more scary? Let's dig into the details of the monarchy's change in power. The inevitable shift. The fifth morning dawned in a silence so deep it felt unreal. The palace gates stayed locked, guards frozen in formation, and the world waited with bated breath. Britain seemed to hold its pulse. Then, at exactly 9 o'clock, the news broke, measured, formal, and heavy with history. His Majesty King Charles will be stepping back from all public duties due to a grave illness.
Buckingham Palace has said King Charles spent a short period of time in hospital today after experiencing the temporary side effects of his cancer treatment.
He continues to receive the best medical care, entrusting the Prince of Wales with oversight of state matters. The statement was brief, but its echo rippled far beyond the palace walls. The throne had tilted, quietly yet unmistakably. For days, Prince William had remained unseen, shielded behind Windsor's stone and silence. When he finally stepped into the light, the world's gaze turned sharply toward him. Commentators reached for words that could capture what was unfolding. An interim sovereign, some murmured. not a formal abdication but the unmistakable shadow of one. The monarchy was shifting, gracefully but gravely, before the eyes of millions. Inside the royal residences, a hushed reverence filled the corridors. Staff moved softly, their voices low, their faces drawn. William's early morning visit to his father's bedside had been brief. Only a few whispered sentences exchanged. Yet those few words carried the weight of decades, a passing of trust, of duty, of legacy. Charles, weakened but resolute, had looked into his son's eyes, and something unspoken moved between them. It was the moment when one reign began to fade and another quietly took root. By afternoon, the palace issued another signal. Cameras gathered at the iron gates of Buckingham, a sea of umbrellas glinting under the gray English sky. When William appeared, dressed in a dark suit that seemed to absorb the somber mood of the hour, silence fell across the crowd. His expression was solemn, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion, the look of a man carrying both grief and responsibility. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but tender. "My father's life of service inspires us all," he said, the words measured and deliberate. "In this time of trial, we remain united. Your prayers and kindness sustain our family." It was short, as royal statements often are, but it stirred something deeper in the public heart, a shared recognition that this was not just protocol. It was a son stepping into the storm, with the world watching. Behind closed doors, Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood firm at the family's core. With calm grace, she began to ready herself for what lay ahead. A heavier schedule, a brighter spotlight, a nation now looking to her and her husband for reassurance. Together, they were bracing for a chapter that neither had expected to begin so soon. As dusk settled over London, the city seemed changed. Commentators filled the airwaves, calling it an epical moment, the beginning of a new royal era shaped by both duty and tenderness. But beneath the grandeur and speculation, something profoundly human pulsed. The bond between a father and son, the unrelenting passage of time, the fragile line between power and mortality. That night, the palace remained lit, its golden windows glowing against the cold. Inside, aides moved discreetly, doctors came and went, and somewhere in the upper floors, William sat awake, the weight of centuries pressing softly on his shoulders. He looked out toward the horizon, where the lights of the city flickered faintly against the dark. The future was no longer a distant prospect. It was already here, unfolding, with quiet inevitability. The fifth morning had ended not with ceremony, but with contemplation. And as the world watched through the hush of midnight, the story of a son rising through circumstance, not ambition, took shape under the glow of a single enduring truth. The crown never sleeps, but those who bear it are only human. Was the shift in power rather too early? Was William prepared to take control? Does he seem to be capable of steering the wheel of the monarchy? Let's take a look into the details of the preparation of a young king. The making of a modern king. From birth, Prince William's life has been a quiet preparation for kingship. Every experience shaped him for the role he now embraces with confidence. Since Queen Elizabeth II's passing, his transformation from a reserved heir to a visible, capable leader has become unmistakable. Serving as King Charles III's trusted partner, William now shares real responsibility in guiding the monarchy. The Channel 5 documentary William and the King, like father, like son, reveals how years of mentorship and experience have refined his leadership. His hosting of global figures like Donald Trump and Emmanuel Macron shows his growing influence, marked by diplomacy, empathy, and emotional intelligence that reflect a modern, respectful vision for the future of Britain's royal institution. Journalist Afua Hagen, who contributed to the documentary, described William's demeanor as calm, measured, and modern. "He carries himself with quiet authority," she noted, "and that's what makes him so effective. He doesn't need to command the room. He earns it. It's a style that mirrors his late grandmother's restraint yet carries his own generational touch, more approachable, more in tune with today's world." Royal author Katie Nicholl added another layer to this portrait by emphasizing the remarkable confidence King Charles places in his eldest son. In a monarchy defined by hierarchy and duty, trust at that level is not easily given. It is earned. Nicholl explained that such responsibilities are reserved for those who have proven themselves fully capable of upholding the dignity and stability of the crown. Behind palace walls, William is seen as absolutely ready, not only to assist, but to lead if ever the time should come sooner than expected. What makes this relationship between father and son so compelling is how it contrasts with the often turbulent royal dynamics of the past. While the House of Windsor has seen its share of generational tension, Charles and William's partnership feels refreshingly united. Insiders speak of regular consultations between the two men, quiet strategy sessions at Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, and a shared desire to ensure the monarchy remains relevant and respected. King Charles, who has spent decades preparing for his own reign, seems to recognize in William a steadying presence, a partner who can help guide the institution through the challenges of a changing world. Looking ahead, royal biographer Ingrid Seward predicts that William's eventual reign will strike a balance between tradition and transformation. She envisions a monarchy that maintains its historic grandeur, yet reflects the conscience of modern Britain. William, she says, is deeply aware of public sentiment and eager to make the royal family more transparent, compassionate, and connected to the people it serves. He values efficiency and purpose over ceremony for ceremony's sake, aiming to build a leaner monarchy, one that embodies both continuity and change. Observers also point to his growing influence in social causes as a sign of the kind of king he intends to be. His Earthshot Prize, focused on environmental innovation, has already made waves across the world, showcasing his commitment to real-world solutions rather than symbolic gestures. His advocacy for mental health and his support for early childhood initiatives reveal a man who views leadership not as privilege, but as service. In many ways, William's story is one of quiet preparation meeting the moment of opportunity. He has grown from a boy shaped by loss into a man defined by purpose, a prince who has watched, learned, and is now ready to lead. The monarchy under King Charles III may still be in its early chapter, but one truth is becoming increasingly clear. Its future is already taking shape in the steady hands of his son. Prince William's journey stands as a modern royal evolution, a blend of heritage and humanity, of tradition and transformation. As Britain and the Commonwealth watch, the heir apparent continues to prove that the crown's strength in the years ahead may not only lie in its history, but in the quiet confidence of the man preparing to wear it. What was it like with the new king? Did the public give him his due rights? Let's take a look into the health of King Charles. A new dawn, forged in sorrow. Day 6 unfolded beneath a heavy sky, clouds hanging low as though the heavens themselves mourned. Church bells rang across the kingdom, their deep tolls merging in solemn harmony. Outside palace gates, the sea of flowers thickened. Bouquets, handwritten notes, and cards soaked with rain and love. The scent of lilies mixed with the faint chill of autumn. It was a day when silence spoke more loudly than words. Inside Clarence House, Prince William gathered with advisors and family members. The great dining table that once belonged to his father now became his command post. Despite the ache in his chest, he sat tall, his voice calm but steady. Ministers watched in quiet respect. "He hasn't just stepped up," one senior aide whispered. He's ascended in spirit. The vigil around the king continued. Outside, helicopters traced endless circles over Windsor, searching, guarding, documenting history in motion. Within palace walls, a quiet dance of duty unfolded. Doctors monitoring officials drafting statements, and staff balancing empathy with precision. Queen Camilla stayed close, a pillar of loyalty and endurance beside the hospital bed. At midday, the Prime Minister arrived at St. James's Palace for a confidential meeting. Behind closed doors, they spoke not just of health, but of continuity. What must follow? What must remain unchanged? The air was thick with reverence, each word measured, each nod a silent agreement of fate being written. By afternoon, the royal family retreated briefly to regroup. Catherine's calm presence soothed the tense atmosphere. Her gentle composure anchored those around her. Staff referred to her quietly as the family's heartbeat. As the evening news rolled in, a statement reassured the nation. The king remains under close observation. The Prince of Wales has assumed certain duties with His Majesty's blessing. The message was brief, but its meaning immense. Transition had begun, subtly yet unmistakably. That night, William stepped onto the balcony, looking over the darkened gardens of Buckingham Palace. The wind brushed his face, carrying echoes of his mother's tenderness, his grandmother's discipline, and his father's devotion to service. In that solitude, under the watching eyes of history, he seemed to merge all three legacies into one, no longer merely an heir, but the pulse of a grieving kingdom. Day 7 dawned quieter, the city holding its breath. The courtyard before the palace felt sacred in its stillness. William rested only in fragments prepared for a national address. He rewrote the speech himself, line by line, refusing to let anyone polish the words. "It must sound human," he murmured to Catherine. She touched his hand, her quiet strength saying what words could not. That evening, from the blue-lit chamber of Buckingham Palace, his voice reached millions. "My father's vision lives on. I serve humbly, guided by his example." His sincerity resonated. Across living rooms, offices, and pubs, the nation cried together and found peace in shared purpose. For the first time in days, Britain exhaled. Day 8 brought tributes from every corner of the world. Windsor became a tapestry of flags and flowers, a global garden of remembrance. Doctors' expressions grew grave. The palace corridors whispered of decline. Catherine and Camilla kept vigil side by side, their bond strengthened by the silence of waiting. Behind the scenes, privy councils met discreetly, preparing for what everyone feared but could not say aloud. Day 9 arrived with the slow toll of bells. At noon, the palace confirmed what hearts already knew. His Majesty King Charles III had passed away. Television anchors trembled through their announcements. Across the realm, flags fell to half-mast. In the courtyard, William looked skyward, grief and duty colliding in his eyes. Then came the resolve. Operation Menai Bridge, the final protocol, moved into motion. By evening, he stood before the nation once again. With Catherine beside him, he declared, "My father's compassion will guide me. I pledge my life to serving with love." The kingdom fell into reverent quiet. Candles flickered in windows. Choirs sang softly in cathedrals. Charles's reign had ended, but from the embers of sorrow rose a new light, King William V, born not from triumph, but from love, loss, and the unwavering will to serve. So do you think William is fully set to take on the crown? Will he perform beyond expectations? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.